All right, let's get it.
Let's
Hello,
go.
everybody. Welcome back to the Content Manager podcast. This is episode 2, and I have a very special guest. I'll explain to you why in a second, but I'm here with Mikey Caloca. Mikey is actually one of my first friends I've made online when it comes to the creative space, the content space, and we're going to get into that a little bit in depth here on this podcast. Thank you so much, Mikey, for being here.
My dude, I appreciate you for having me. This is I haven't done a podcast in a minute, but this is exciting. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. This is episode 2. So, I mean, I've only done one other podcast. If you guys haven't seen that one, it's with my buddy Eric, who's a videographer. But today we have Mikey. Mikey, you're actually a graphic designer, and we want to get into a little bit about your background, how you got started. So, can we go back let's go back like 5 years. What were you doing like 5 years ago before even this graphic design stuff in your world that started?
Shoot. Well, 5 years. So right now, 5 years ago, 2019, I was still in school. I mean, I was still in college. This is like before COVID.
Mhm.
I had been going to college. Dude, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up going for like sports management. I love sports, so I wanted to get into basketball somehow, but it just didn't pan out that way. Kind of COVID hit in 2020 and like a lot of stuff changed, but 5 years ago stuff wasn't as interesting as like maybe 4 years ago. That's kind of when everything changed.
Well, yeah. I remember when we first had started talking, you were going through college. I think you were getting close to wrapping it up. And you really wanted to work for the Miami Heat. Like that was your
Yeah.
number one thing. Like if I can find a job, if I can find a way to work for the Miami Heat, I want to do this. And so that was really what was guiding you at the time. Now, one of my first memories I can recall, and I'm sure you can recall this too, is I had just started working with this Madden player named Pavin, and I was working on his YouTube channel as his content manager. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, I need to find a thumbnail designer to help us out with the channel. And lo and behold, that's how we got in contact initially. Um, you
Mhm.
had you had been on Fiverr under the name Murder Mike, and I was scrolling through it one day and I was like, yo, this is actually pretty cool. And so I reached out to you, and I think we just really kicked it off from the get-go, which is kind of rare to
Yeah.
reach out to somebody and just to have that personal connection
Yep.
super quickly. So do you recall that time and that experience?
I recall every second of that point in my life. Crazy enough, like I was looking back, the first graphic that I ever made for you was 4 years ago, like almost to the day. It was August 16th, 2020. But now man, I when I finished college, I obviously went for sports and then COVID kind of kicked in, so everything was gone sports wise. Um, I don't know what the heck kind of like made me get into graphic design, but years before 2020, I had been doing YouTube videos. Everyone like during 2016 was like vlogging and stuff. So I joined the wave, didn't do anything with it. But my mom is a graphic designer, so she made my thumbnails. So I had made a Fiverr listing in 2020 with my thumbnails for my Murda Mike YouTube channel. I had never made those thumbnails. I didn't know how to do graphic design. I had just put those up to see if somebody would bite. Dude, to this day, I don't know how you found my account because I had no joke, dude. I had just made my Fiverr account the night prior. And then the next day, I get a message on Fiverr from you that you're a content manager for an esports player in the Madden space. And like, if you remember, 2020 during COVID, esports was hot. Um, so when I had read that you were an esports content manager, I was like, nah, this has to be a scam. There's no way. And my listing was for $1. I was willing to work for free, but Fiverr doesn't let you put free, so I had to put $1 for my services. So I was willing to take $1, even nothing, just to build a portfolio because I wanted to like learn graphic design. Um, dude, you hit me up and we clicked. I don't know what happened. It was like God's will to like literally to this day, I've always been mind blown thinking about that. Like I have the screenshot of our first message, and like just how we hit it off so well. And dude, you and I worked together for probably like 5 or 6 months. I didn't make a dime working from you. We did stuff for free for like 5 or 6 months. But like the value that I got of creating a portfolio, like I'm like eternally grateful for you, dog. So yeah, 2020 is when like a lot went down.
Yeah, I mean, those times were definitely interesting because I was also, coming out of college, not really sure about what the next steps look like. I think it was for both of us a time of like, let's just take massive risk and see
Yeah.
what happens because you never know what might happen. And like tomorrow might be a day where something pops off. And like you were
Hmm.
saying with esports, it was really hot because everybody was inside. This Twitch thing was starting to pop off. Like before that, I wasn't on Twitch, I wasn't watching Twitch, but getting, that firsthand exposure through our mutual friend Pavin of like seeing, like people are actually playing the games, streaming the games, and getting like good viewership. There's these tournaments going on. There's
Yeah.
like an ecosystem here, like on Twitter, you can see all these people talking about it. And each year, it keeps growing bigger and bigger. And so we thought to ourselves, like, what if, we could make something out of this? And fast forward a couple years, there's been some really cool opportunities that have come about. Pavin's been doing his thing, Henry's been doing his thing, who are both Madden players, and the scene is still here, which is really cool to see. And so we've both gained a lot of experience and connections and just made memories through this space. And that's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about like the internet, right? Like you can connect with people, people lead to opportunities and things of that nature. So um kind of my next question for you is like, how did that go? Like after you had met me and like done the Photoshop and stuff, what was the next transition look like for you?
Um, it's a great question actually. So when I had first started working with you, like I said, my initial thought process was just let me work for free because I know I'm not going to get a job. No one's going to trust me. Like at the time, there were a lot of jobs popping off remotely. Um, I knew that I had a funny feeling graphic design was going to be big, man. So I just hustled in the graphic design space. I worked for free for you for a while, until eventually you had hit me up and you were like, you're like, hey, somebody's asking who's making so and so's graphics. I recommended you. Um, and then you and I were really transparent with each other, and we kind of talked about money. And like, I was actually now able to start charging people, dude, to the point where I think a year went by and I started making 2,000 a month just living at home off of like esport players. And like, I had cracked the code because now I'm 20 years old, 21 years old, living at home with my parents at the time, not paying anything, making 2,000 a month, not having to go anywhere. Um, so yeah, I one of like the craziest things that I had done, like you said a minute ago, taking a risk. Even when I hadn't been making any money, I had like bought this laptop that I could not afford, just to like kind of light a fire under me a little bit. And I don't know, sometimes you gotta like make a crazy jump, crazy risk to like really like scare yourself a little bit, and then you kind of adapt to whatever the circumstance is. If it doesn't work, you just go back. It isn't that deep. Um, Especially I think with our age too, it was very like you could take risks and not be in a bad position. But yeah, dude, after we had taken the risk, after I had grown a little bit, now it was just time to like conform the portfolio, make a resume, and start finding career opportunities. So I had been designing for I think a year. I started applying, and I just needed a company to just give me an interview. That was it. I just wanted to know that there was somebody that like saw me. And if I had gotten an interview, I knew I was doing something right. Dude, the first company I interviewed for was NBA 2K, which like when I got the email for an interview, I was like, what? Like, there's no shot. So I obviously didn't get the job, but it was just like the idea of okay, what I'm doing is working, let me continue on this path. So I just kept applying for jobs. I even had interviewed for VaynerMedia, which was Gary's media agency. That one fell through. So eventually, like I said, God's timing is crazy. And it kind of led me to the next phase in my life when I had met somebody that did work at Gary's company. Um, my boy Aaron, shout out to him. He plugged me in at the right time. They were looking for a graphic designer at this company called 1:37 p.m. And that was I was literally all I needed, bro. After I had gotten that job, I just kind of like locked in and did my thing. I had a career now. I was making a salary. I had benefits. Like I'm a whole adult now at like 21, and I've only been designing for a year. So yeah, a lot changed.
Yeah, I mean, reflecting back on those times, I think that the esports had served a purpose for you of like you were getting those reps in, getting the practice,
Yeah.
honing in on your skills, which for anybody who wants to look at your resume, I'll go ahead and drop that into the description. Definitely check out his work. I think what people can take away from that, it's like you can get better in a short amount of time. In just a span of 1 year, your thumbnails were getting to the point where like I was getting DMs of people asking, yo, who's making the thumbnails? And you were getting a lot of referrals coming your way. A lot of people were coming your way, especially like in the little ecosystem that we were in. I'm sure
Mhm.
we could name off 4 or 5, 6 different people who you've worked with just in Madden alone. But there was, like you said, bigger opportunities. And I think you made a huge jump, getting that job at 137, which kind of leads you into where you are today.
Yeah, yeah, 137. The well, backtrack a little bit. Like when I was working with like these referrals, it was great because like I branched out outside of Madden. I even was able to try things that I just tried things. That was really it. Like there's no negative in trying. So like I had tried content management. I figured that wasn't for me, but I tried it. I made money off of it, but I didn't enjoy it. Same thing with video editing. I learned video editing. I can forever carry that in my future, but I didn't enjoy it. So I always like reverted back to graphic design, but just being open, which is like something that I want to message to people is like just literally being open to anything and taking a risk can change your life, literally. So after I had gotten the 137 opportunity, that's where like stuff started to sort of ramp up because I now was creating things that were going on websites. I was working on partnerships with other companies. So now I had worked with, it's funny, I had ended up working with Fiverr and I did stuff for Fiverr in the future, which is like the reason why I even began. I had worked with Fiverr, I worked with JD Sports, I worked with Under Armour for Stephen Curry's campaign. Like I had some really cool things that I had worked on with like a years of experience. Like I grew so quick. And I had to adapt, but I think I had adapted pretty well and ended up working at 137 for like a year. And then sort of like going back in time to when you said I love like I wanted to work for the Miami Heat. I ended up getting a job offer to go work for the Memphis Grizzlies. And that's where like again taking a risk kind of comes in because I did leave 137 and I had went to the Memphis Grizzlies. And it was just a prime example of like if you take a risk and it doesn't work, it's totally okay to backtrack and just adapt. That's literally it. You just gotta adapt. So I had called my job back. I did not like working in Memphis. It just wasn't for me. And I had ended up going back into Gary's ecosystem where I currently am and where I've been at for almost 3 years, which is at BeFriends. And I like love where I'm at right now.
Gotcha. And so taking that risk, let's kind of dig into that a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you had the 137 role and this opportunity with the Grizzlies had come up and like we had talked about before, you'd always wanted to work in some capacity. I know that the Miami Heat was like your number one option.
Yeah.
What made you take that role and going and working with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I mean, the role, like again, like I had gotten some crazy experience like really early. So like my portfolio was almost stacked in a year and a half. And I couldn't believe that like an NBA team was going to be hiring me that quick. Excuse me. So it was almost like a not too good to be true, but it was like, wow, like I really did that. Like I really did graphic design in a year and a half maybe, and like already went to the NBA. The only thing was I got a little bit spoiled during COVID. Um, Remote jobs were like peak. Like that was like the only way to work. So going into an office was a bit of like against the norm at the time. So I had taken the jump. I went to an office job. Um, and I don't know, it just did not feel like that's what I was like called to do. I guess that's the best way that I can describe it. I was like really emotional. I was calling my parents all the time, like I don't want to be here. I would like literally drive back to Atlanta like every couple of weeks just to come back home because I hated being there. It wasn't anything against the city. It was just I did not feel at home in Memphis. I didn't enjoy my job. And like that's the worst feeling is like the thing that takes up a majority of your life for it to like cause the most darkness in your like your mental. It was the worst thing. So yeah, like taking the risk, was it a great opportunity? Yeah. I'm glad I did it. Um, Looking back, I probably wouldn't be where I currently am if it wasn't for taking that risk. So everything happens for a reason. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like very grateful that that happened. Um, and that's kind of where I'm led to now.
Yeah, there's a couple of themes I wanted to kind of brush up on. I know that being open is one of your core values here of like, being open to new opportunities. You never know what may happen, but the other aspect of it, and I'm sure aspiring graphic designers and creatives could use this as a specific skill set, but what has the value of like just being gritty and just putting the work in, just putting your head down each day, regardless of like what the result might be? What kind of role has that played in your career success thus far?
Being gritty, dude, you have to be. Like this world that we live in, it sucks because like my specific age bracket were brought up a little bit right after I finished high school is like when people started realizing college isn't exactly what they make it out to be. So I was raised on the foundational like mindset that college is the only way. So I went to college and I racked up student debt and I went out into the corporate world and I realized like this is not what they make it seem. Jobs that are considered entry level are requiring 5 years of experience. Like it doesn't make any sense. Um, so like you have to be gritty. Um, it was just like during COVID, people either stayed home and were lazy and like enjoyed the time off, or during COVID, you really locked in. And there are I've met some people that like have created some like multi-million dollar businesses during COVID. Like if it wasn't for COVID, they wouldn't be where they're at today, which is kind of my thing. But you have to be gritty, man, especially nowadays where it's like a dog eat dog world. Social media is huge. We have the power of a computer in our hands. You have to be like, you got to hustle, man. So hustling changed my life. I try to instill it in like anyone that I talk to because it's extremely important. Like you're not going to get handed anything. You have to like work for it. Um, and my story, personally, my story is a result of it. Not everyone's would pan out the same, but I've never seen any negative to working hard.
Yeah, and that definitely reflects in your identity as like a graphic designer. I've seen it firsthand. I know how reliable you are when it comes to work. And so, what are the keys to success for someone who is an aspiring graphic designer who maybe has a year or 2 years of experience, but they haven't really had that big breakthrough, or they're just kind of going through the motions, not really seeing much success, kind of wondering like, what is for me? What is my calling?
Yeah. I've always said the same thing. Like you need to in the graphic design world, your resume does matter, but your portfolio is probably like your ticket to any job or any client, whatever. So for graphic designers specifically, I would say like, dude, you have got to create a bomb portfolio. Um, and sometimes some people are like, oh, but I don't work with anybody. I don't have any people to work with, so I can't build a portfolio. That's not true. You can like literally make up a dream scenario in your head and design it. Like it's just creativity. Make whatever you want. Um, just make yourself sellable. Like you're trying to sell yourself. That's really it. But my biggest advice is just grind, make your portfolio, and be as annoying as possible. Because I was like, I can go through my Twitter DMs. I would DM the most like out of pocket companies. Like I would message like Apple, I'd message like Alienware, companies that I had no business in DMing, but I would just DM them, do you have any opportunities for graphic design? And some people would hit me up. There was an esports company, Minnesota Rocker, that I had hit up. And I had an opportunity. I interviewed and everything just because I was, I guess, annoying. I was DMing, I was trying to be heard, and I ended up being heard, and I had an opportunity come up. So there's a saying, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil,
I've
something
not
like
heard that one
that.
before.
Yeah, it's like it's basically saying like if you like eventually if you don't shut up, someone is gonna do something to make you shut up. So like be annoying. Like I don't know, like you have to go out there and like get it yourself. It's not going to be handed to you. You're right. So whatever. I don't know if it's the correct saying, but someone told me that and it stuck and it resonates with me at least. But yeah, you have got to be annoying, man. People are ashamed and scared to be annoying. It's not that big of a deal.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I do want to fast forward a little bit to today where we're at right now because with everybody that I bring on the podcast, everybody's got these exciting opportunities that they've got going on. In the
Mm.
last podcast, the person I interviewed, he had just got back from a UFC event covering the behind the scenes. Now,
Yeah.
you in particular, you just got back from VCon. I wanted to hear a little bit about how that went, how the preparation went this year compared to last year, and just your overall experience of VCon as a whole for those who don't even know what it is.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know what it is, VCon is like it first of all, VCon is ran by Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever you know him as. It's his conference, that's why it's called VCon. Um, we just wrapped up year three, but year one and some of year two was like very primarily focused on Web3, and now it's sort of shifted a little bit to more like business, CEO, entrepreneur focused. Um, it's just a giant mega conference. So you go, but it's not like your typical conference that's boring and you got like, conference rooms. Like it's a fun event. Like we have like really cool sponsors that put on like cool little activations to make, engagement and with the people that come to the event, whatever. Um, there's some really cool speakers. Obviously, Gary has like some amazing connections. So the speakers that speak at VCon are of the caliber. So it's a really cool event to go to. They're very like intimate speaking events. So like you're sitting in a room where you're like really close to this person. It's just a really cool like event. So that's pretty much what VCon is. Just a giant business conference. But yeah, I just got back and it was dope, man. I've worked on all three already. I've been to all three. And me personally, this was my favorite. The venue was really cool. It was in LA, so like the weather was great. The speakers were great. I obviously can't go like see all the speakers because I'm working during the event, but it's cool just to like step out every now and then and like look at the venue and be like, wow, like we actually worked on this. I worked on a ton of creative for the event, so it's just cool to like see stuff and people wearing stuff that I made or worked on or whatever. So yeah, it was a really, really fun event. LA was beautiful. Um, it was at this little venue called LA Live, so it was like primarily outdoors and it was just a lot of fun, man. So if whoever's listening to this doesn't know what VCon is, go check it out on like Instagram or whatever. You could see kind of the recap and it's a really, really cool event, man.
So you said you were working there. How does that work? Do you just bring your laptop and you have like your own booth, or how does that work as a graphic designer?
Yeah, so before VCon, everything is already made. It's just like, sponsors will need certain things, or like we might announce a speaker out of nowhere because somebody got added last minute. So I'll create graphics for speakers. Um, yeah, just like working, we're downstairs, like hidden away. We called it the dungeon, and we're down there like just grinding, just working. We had the social team there, we got the events team, we got like the creative team. Like we're all just kind of like scrambling, designing stuff, but it's cool because we can all just tell each other like, "Hey, I need this," and then I'll make it. So it was cool. It was fun, but I wasn't like trapped in there the whole time. I would go out and walk around and go see the event, which was cool.
Awesome. I see, like, I'm sure a lot of people who watch this know about who Gary Vee is and they've seen his content online, but for someone to actually work for him and work in near proximity of him, how has that been considering like you're really in the mix of everything, right? Like you have access to him, you have access to his close team. Perhaps you're part of the close team. Could you let us know a little bit about what that's like compared to someone who's on the outside looking in?
Yeah. Um, my original job, 137, was like one of his many companies. Not that he wasn't super involved in the company, but I wasn't as close to the sun as I currently am at VFriends. So yeah, 137, I didn't get too much engagement with him. But when I joined VFriends, now I work a little closer to him. I have more access to him. I'll see him like at events and VCon, whatever, like whenever I do see him, I don't live in New York, so I don't see him every single day. But whenever I do see him, he's there. He's just a regular person. But working for him has been great. He's people like if you look at him online and you see like what he is like kind of like preaching, he's exactly like that in person. He's very, very like compassionate, very empathetic, very, very like engaging. Like he remembers things about you that you would be like, he remembers that. Like he's a very like very good person, man. And working for somebody like that makes work 10 times better because you're working for someone that like practices what they preach. Um, but yeah, working for him is great. The amount of connections that I've made alone, just, working closely to him is awesome. I feel like I have the ultimate like connection in the world. He's like the godfather of like entrepreneurs. So I think working for him has been nothing but great for me. Um, and I don't know where else I'm gonna go with it, but I just know that I don't want to leave his side. I want to like stay as close to his realm as possible because it's done nothing but good things for me.
And one of the other traits of him is he's a very competitive person. And speaking
Yeah.
of that, you guys had a basketball game. Could you let us know a little bit about how that went?
Yeah, dude. Well, that was a couple years ago. That was at VCon 1. We played basketball before one of the VCon days and it was funny, dude. He plays rough. That's like the best way I can describe it. He plays really rough. And at the time he didn't know who I was. So I was just like the kid in the black shirt to him. He didn't know my name or anything. We hadn't had like that interaction for him to really even know me on a first name basis yet. So yeah, we were playing basketball and he scored on me and he's flexing on me, cussing me out, like calling me a B word and stuff, and it was pretty funny. And then I end up hitting this shot at the end of the game and he got pretty upset and like kicked the ball in the air and um it was funny. It was just like a good moment for me. And then I don't think he realizes like how much of an impact it made on me and his relationship because now like I don't think he'll ever forget me from that, which means a lot to me. So we had a good little moment. He like dapped me up, and I think that was the first time that like he was able to like really, really get to know me. But it's funny on his YouTube, he had posted the video and they were recording him, and you could see him saying like, "Who's that kid in the black shirt?" And he's like, "Fire him on Monday." But it was all jokes. But I went up to him, we dapped up. He said, "Hell of a shot." And ever since then, we've just had a good relationship, which the game of basketball, like what it can do, man. So yeah, that was a cool little moment for me. I think that video, if you want to link it somewhere, you can. But it was a cool little clip.
Yeah, of course. I'll be sure to edit that into here so that way people who watch the shorts can kind of get to see a little bit about what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
as we wrap this up, we're coming to a close. Do you have any final pieces of advice for anybody who's trying to be like you, as well as perhaps, link to your socials and how everyone can connect with you if they have questions?
Well, if you want to connect with me, my name is hard to pronounce. Well, for some people, but it's Mikey Caloca on all socials. So if you want to hit me up on there, you're more than welcome to. Um, I'm always like down to give advice on stuff or just talk to people. Like it's very easy. It's not hard to be a bad person. Like I hate when people are like really inaccessible for whatever reason. Like if anyone needs help, I'm always here. Um, I am starting a new little like venture now, something that I'm trying to grow, which I want to talk about now because I want to look back at this in a year and like sort of see how it's grown. I literally started it this morning. So, and when I start something, I don't play. So I'm gonna put my 100% into this as much as I can because I do have a job. But I'll stop yapping about it. It's an Instagram page. It's called Mikey, Mykey Creative. And I warm up every day to get like the creative juices going, and I figured why not like warm up and make like cool posters and stuff to post on IG. And the goal eventually is to create it to where I can start printing out some of these things and sell them to people. They have cool creative for their walls. Like, I don't know, just that's kind of like where my vision is with it. I don't want to think too far ahead. I want to just focus on that first step. So I took that first step this morning and we're going to continue